What happens to a hedgehog if you remove its fleas? David.
It dies.
David Woo. No, there is a myth to this effect, but it's not true at all.
Oh.
It's perfectly possible if you covered it with anti-dog flea powder, it would die from the dog flea powder, but not from the lack of fleas. They're very happy with their fleas. It doesn't kill them with or without. What mustn't you feed hedgehogs?
Bread and milk.
Exactly, bread and milk is a bad idea. People do it. It gives them diarrhoea and they dry out.
Really feed bread and milk to any mammal, including humans.
But there is a Radio 4 show that deals...
come off it.
No,
well, you shouldn't feed humans bread and milk.
No, not really.
What do you mean, not really? It's absolutely demonstrably fine.
No, it's not very good for you.
Well, it's fine.
Bread and butter
I've been
pudding.
drinking milk and eating bread for ages. Why is it suddenly a massive problem? Oh,
Yeah.
no, actually, we're supposed to live till we're 250. But no, we've been eating all this poisonous bread and milk all the time. We can barely live past 98. It's ridiculous. Of course we're supposed to eat bread and milk. Not just bread and milk.
Oh, poor Alan.
No,
Don't
no.
bully him. Poor Alan.
It's not...
You shake hands and be friends
Sorry,
now.
Alan.
So, despite what you may have heard on Radio 4's programme,
Yes.
presented by David Mitchell, what's your programme called?
The Unbelievable Truth.
Exactly.
One of the unbelievable truths turns out unbelievably to be not true.
You claimed.
Yeah, just people give you this shit and you read it out.
It's brilliant.
I've no idea what you mean.
They're not New Labour anymore. No. I hadn't noticed that. They're going to rebrand.
Yeah, Labour.
Labour Classic.
They couldn't call themselves New Labour when Blair left. It's like when Mike Nolan left Bucks Fizz. They couldn't call themselves Bucks Fizz anymore.
Labour could go with Bucks Fizz. Champagne socialists, but slightly
Bucks
diluted
Fizz.
with orange juice. And the Lib Dems, what are they?
I think they're going to sit this election out. I
Yeah.
think. That's probably...
They've got a note from their mother.
Yeah.
I think they'll play the sympathy vote to a certain extent. Just have Nick Clegg topless holding a puppy, just looking into the camera like that.
According to the Sunday Times, what has David Cameron decided to do?
Resign.
No.
Go on holiday.
No, this is about the TV debates.
He's going to debate with Nigel Farage. He's going for the toughest one first.
That's right. Cameron is going to take on Farage. According to the Sunday Times, Cameron wants the TV debates to be in a 2-3-5 formation. So that's Cameron Miliband, Clegg Miliband Cameron, and Farage Cameron Clegg Miliband with Yaya Toure behind the strikers. Thank you for laughing. I don't know what that meant. Who cooperated with the FIFA inquiry?
The English.
Yes, no one except the English and the Australians, and definitely not the Russians or the Qataris.
We never get it, do we? We're conducting... Oh, yes, we'll help. You're guilty.
But why... I mean, why would anyone believe the Russians could be corrupt? But why didn't they cooperate with the FIFA inquiry?
Because they destroyed all their records by accident. Yes. As you do when someone says, I'm conducting an investigation.
It was simply that the Russians were unable to provide more than a few documents from the bidding process because the computers they used during their bid had been leased, they were returned and subsequently destroyed by their original.
We must bid for the World Cup. First, we must rent some computers.
Qatari Mohammed bin Hammam undoubtedly paid money to a delegate from Tahiti specifically to vote for the Qatari bid, but why have FIFA dismissed this as irrelevant?
But they said he wasn't acting on behalf of the Qataris. Despite being Qatari and described by the Qataris as their greatest asset in our bid for the World Cup, he was not acting for them. Thank goodness FIFA sorted that one out.
But in this instance, they know he paid money to a delegate to vote for the Qatari bid, so that it's definitely to do with the Qatari bid, but they dismissed it as irrelevant because they said this was only one vote out of the 13 required and therefore could not have been significant. If the ballot papers of 1/13 of the British electorate were forged, that wouldn't be relevant because it couldn't affect the result.
No.
I mean, it's not funny, but these people are arseholes. What, according to the FIFA report, did the English bidding team do that was so worthy of condemnation?
They organised a gala dinner
Yes.
for Warner and generally sucked up to him.
It's almost sweet, our pathetic attempts to bribe them. We sponsored a dinner for Caribbean football to the tune of £30,000 and found a part-time job for a friend of Jack Warner. That's the Jack Warner that the Qataris paid over $1 million to. I think they got a signed copy of your book as well. Did you see the exchange of emails between some of bin Hammam's staff as the allegations of corruption first surfaced?
No.
Well, they appeared in the Sunday Times. It starts, I need you to start shredding his correspondence. So soon? Yes, start from now. There are 3 years of filing to be shredded. Just do it discreetly, OK? What about the request from the Russians to shred?
And how many knots are there in this picture? Silence! Yes?
2.
Well, you've got some options.
Oh, none.
One?
Yeah!
Oh, you're such a swat. Is it the noose? Is
There
that
are
the
2
only one?
hitches, a bend and a knot.
The one on the right is a canoose.
Yes.
A noose, but it is a knot.
Oh, a
Yeah.
noose is a knot.
A noose is a type of knot.
The
A
hitches-
hangman's knot.
The hitches are the first one and the third one.
It's correct. They are hitches, and the second one is what's known
bend.
as a
It's clearly a
bend. In everyday speech, of course, the word knot is used for all of them, but this is QI, where everyday speech is completely... So the highwayman's hitch, for example, I have an example of a highwayman's hitch. That's where you hitch a horse, and the tighter you pull, the tighter it goes, but when you want to get away quickly, you pull the short one.
Oh, that is good.
Isn't that clever?
Does he not just run off with the stick?
It's a post in the ground.
Because if you tied up your dog to that and you went, right, and then threw it and the dog ran after, what a confusion there.
Yeah. Another one was called the European Death Knot, the Euro Death Knot, or EDK.
Was that named by UKIP?
It's also a one-sided overhand bend. It's used for joining 2 ropes, as you can see. It's perfectly safe, used right, but a lot of climbers thought it wasn't safe, and it was invented in Europe, so American climbers called it the Euro Death Knot. In fact, it's very, very old, and the 5,300-year-old man, Ötzi, who was discovered in the Alps, dead, obviously.
For a moment there.
He was preserved.
There for 5,000 years ago. Well, help! Will somebody help?
He had amongst his possessions a knot tied exactly in that fashion. So it shows that we've been doing it for a very long time.
And that would have been before rope was invented. So how we pulled that off?
The other hitch we saw was called the snuggle hitch, which is a more secure version of the better-known sailor's knot, the clove hitch.
You look at me as if I would know.
Sorry,
that. Come on, Susan, you know that.
One of the surprising things about it, because it looks reasonably simple, was that it was invented in 1987. Or at least that's when it was very first introduced into the International Knot Tyers Guild.
Did they think they had enough knots?
Yeah, no. there are 3,800 in there. We're not going to go through each one of them.
So that's a very specific 80s knot. Did somebody go, we need a way of tying down Banana-Rama?
It was a man called Owen Nuttall, anyway, who invented it, and he called it the snuggle
I
hitch.
imagine he speaks like that.
Well,
The snuggle...
Nuttall here.
he might
invented
well
a
do. The hangman's knot is named after one of the most famous hangmen in history, Charles II's hangman.
Oh, Johnny...
French guy.
Johnny Noose.
No, because odd enough, his surname is a sailing vessel. Jack
Boat.
Ketch.
Yacht.
Ketch.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, has a tall mast at the front and a small mast at the back. The
Very
ketch.
indeed. It is
Yes,
a
I'd
ketch.
just like to put that out.
Well done.
Thank you.
This became pretty much the standard hanging noose that was used because it broke the neck very quickly. So it was a very quick death when you dropped. The drop, as they called it. So, in a way, it was humane.
It's good that you say he was an effective hangman, because if you weren't an effective hangman, you're essentially just a bloke that opens a door.
So, from the height of ridiculousness to the ridiculousness of height, how will short people save the world?
Is it by going on a baking show and becoming a national treasure?
Ah, extra point.
There we go. We got it.
Eating less?
Yes, it is sort of
Breathing less?
It is, yes, it's to do with all of those.
Breathing less, did you say?
It's got to be better, basically, overall, because broadly speaking, a short person functions like a medium-height person or a tall person and takes less fuel and uses up less space.
That is exactly right.
They'll be the heroes of the moment with the stockpiling.
Yeah.
They're not going for the top shelves. They can't get there.
No, exactly.
Yeah. If we all die out, it's my lot's fault.
Yeah. Are you very tall?
Yeah.
So there's a theory called reventropy, which is that humans ought to be shorter. There's a guy called Thomas Samaras. In 1994, he wrote a book called The Truth About Your Height, and he argued that people were getting taller because they had excessive protein in their diet, and this was leading to much greater consumption of everything. So you needed more land for farming, you get more waste, you get more pollution, and in order to preserve resources, really, you need to control the size of human beings, and that being shorter is good for you because it's... Look at that, that's me and Richard Osman. Being short is good for you, it slows ageing. Shorter people do have longer lifespans.
Really?
Yeah. So
You hit your head a lot less, though, probably.
That's true. I've never hit my head on a doorway, not once.
But you've probably caught the corner of a table a few times.
and the lid on a toilet.
Yes.
Macy, how tall are you?
5'11".
Do you have, like, strict rules about people you go out with or marry or whatever who is taller or shorter than you? Because my tall girl friends all refuse to go out with somebody who's shorter than me.
I think shorter men can be really, like, attractive, but I would just feel cumbersome, I reckon. My boyfriend is 6 foot.
And was that a deal breaker, as it were? You had to... You know.
I'd love to say no, but it absolutely was.
I like the shallowness of it.
I'm really shallow.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I think
Very tall, very shallow.
Yeah, I think that's marvellous.
I'm like a candle.
Yeah, yeah. There was another lonely voice campaigning against something the rest of us take for granted. There's a man called Roger Babson. He was an American stock market guru. He was the guy in the Q series that invented little hammers so that typists could wear mittens and work outside.
He what?
Yeah, he was obsessed with fresh air and he got his secretaries to work outside on typewriters and their hands were too cold, so he invented a series of little hammers so they could wear mittens while typing. Do you think that's crazy? His real passion was that he campaigned against gravity.
Oh, wow.
So he had a couple of very disturbing events. His sister and then later his grandson died from drowning, and he devoted his considerable fortune to fighting against the evil old man gravity, which he argued killed millions of people every year. And he paid 3 investigators to sit permanently in the US Patent Office, scanning incoming applications for anti-gravity inventions, anything, costumes, shields, whatever it might be, so that could be used to insulate people from gravity, because he hoped one day to eliminate airplane accidents.
There was drownings in his
Yeah.
and he blamed
Gravity.
not water.
No, he didn't have an anti-water thing.
Yeah.
In fact, he set up the
Gravity that pulls you under, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the water's trying to help them.
If there was no gravity, you'd float. And also the water would be
If there
in
wasn't
the air.
gravity, the water would be in the air. Ants, they kill 30 people a year. Jellyfish...
What? How?
Yeah.
Luring them across the road.
Yeah. Which do you think is the most dangerous out of all those animals in terms of human deaths?
Well, I know hippos are real psychos.
Yeah, it is the hippos. It's absolutely... They kill...
Psychos! Hippos are psycho, man!
2,900 people a year are killed by hippos. Really? So compare that to 6 people killed by sharks. You are 1,000 times more likely to drown in the sea than you are to be bitten by a shark, even in an area with sharks. You know that wonderful tune written by John Williams, the 2-note theme to Jaws? He described it as grinding away at you just as a shark would do, instinctual, relentless, unstoppable. Benchley actually has a shark named after him, Etmopterus benchleyi. Not exactly a killer, it's about 30 to 50 centimetres long. Also known as Ninja Lantern Shark. It's fairly recently discovered. It lives off the coast of Central America. We don't have one, obviously, in the studio, but I have a life-size cutout, so it looks like that.
That's the size it is in real life?
That's the size of the one that Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, has got named.
That is pathetic.
Yeah?
This is a shark.
But you see, you can't help yourself but do the music. You immediately went... There's a thing.
So he looks really nice and friendly
He
there.
looks rather sweet. It's got lots of things on the side that says you shouldn't do, but it doesn't say don't swim with actual sharks. That is not the smallest shark, though, the one named after Bentley. The dwarf lantern shark is the smallest, and it grows to only about 15 centimetres.
I'd say, you know, a couple of those on a pizza, a bit of tomato.
Their stomach organs emit light to camouflage them from creatures below, so it makes them blend into the sunlight that streams from the light above.
My favourite shark that I've ever seen was Joe Lycett in a swimming pool in Canada. We were doing gigs out together, and you know your little, like...
Oh, yeah?
your shark that he does in the pool, but you don't see Joe coming. And then he goes, da-da, 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 da-da.
There was a gay Jaws as well that I did, which was da-da-da-da.
Scared of me? Shut up! Did you know that female sharks can reproduce without male contact? Did you
Finally.
know this?
Living the dream.
It is almost impossible to sneak up on a shark, and that's because they have eyes on the side of their head. They can see behind them just as well as they can see in front.
I'm very...
So they've got two blind spots, one directly in front of them and one behind.
I'm interested that someone has worked out how difficult it is to sneak up on a shark. Or involves someone seeing a shark and thinking, I tell you what, I'm going to sneak up on it. I'm going to give that shark the fright of its life.
What's your normal temperature?
Isn't it lower if you're a woman than a man?
Slightly higher for a woman.
Slightly higher?
Yeah, it was one or the other, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Just go either way with that.
Because, you know, there's that stereotype of, like, turn up the heating, but I'm too hot, babes.
It is an issue that office temperatures are set to male averages as opposed to female averages.
Do you know a fact about Christine Lagarde, who's the head...
I don't know any facts about Christine Lagarde.
Oh, well, you're about to bloody get one, Sandy. Let's swap chairs. Can I have your glasses for a second?
Do you want some cards?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's got all the answers on here. Have that.
Of course, the interesting about Christine Lagarde that she used to do was that she... please stop laughing, darling. I'm trying to get through the fact. She, when she'd go into business meetings, would put on a lot of layers for the meeting and turn down the heating, so it'd be freezing cold and they'd all be shivering, so they'd make a deal quicker.
Is that true?
Yes, or sometimes she'd turn up the heating really hot and she'd come in like a small dress, and the men would get really sweaty, and then they'd try and hurry through the meeting.
I love that about her. That's
Thank you very much.
fantastic. That's a little fact. Very good. So, what do we reckon? Normal body temperature, you know...
97.6. That's not what I said.
It has often been said 98.6 is a sort of normal temperature.
I got it wrong, of course.
If you...
97.6 is most recently dead.
It turns out there's no single value for normal. There was a study in 1868 by a German doctor with the wonderful name of Karl Reinhold August Wunderlich. Oh. He had a thermometer that was a foot long. Put it under people's armpits and it took 20...
thank God.
I know. It took 20 minutes to actually assess what the temperature was. And it turns out his thermometer, which has been recently retested, had been calibrated wrong. And it ran about 3 degrees higher in Fahrenheit than a modern thermometer. And the fact that he took it under the arm, which produces readings that are lower and less reliable than temperatures taken orally. So he was working with errors in both directions, basically. It's no wonder he settled entirely on the wrong answer.
So there he is. There is a picture of an idiot.
Well, actually, you were inadvertently, possibly, closest. The average actually comes out at about 97.7. And you said 97.6. So I think you should get another point for that. That's very good.
He's even getting them right by accident.
Yeah. So you've each got a way of measuring temperature beside you there. So let's see which one we think is the most reliable. Nish, what have you got, Tony?
Childhood.
I've got a sort of piece of paper.
Yeah. Do you know how those work?
That
Up the butt.
Well, good luck with that. They're all happy to wait.
Does it go on the...
Put it on the forehead. Now, why might that not be ideal?
Oh, because heat rises to the top, so your head's the hottest part of you.
No.
You know what? I genuinely thought you were going to go, yes, and everyone's going to go, ooh, and it just didn't happen at all.
So here's the thing, it's measuring the temperature of your skin and not your body.
Oh.
So similarly, if you put it on your scrotum, that would be wrong. Because the reason men have a scrotum is it's deliberately to keep the balls a bit cooler than the rest of the body.
Yes.
I did not know that.
A better way would be to design testicles in a way that it can be at the same temperature as the rest of the body, but it was in some way fudged. No, it's fine, we'll just have them in a disgusting flesh bag. That's workable for a few hundreds of thousands of years.
I love that we've agreed on disgusting flesh bag.
What best describes, in one word, Richard III's appearance?
Hunchback!
There's no evidence at all that Richard III had a hunched back. Just the black propaganda of the Tudors who succeeded him.
But the character in the play does.
The character in the play does, certainly.
And a limp, sort of arm, twisted arm, isn't he?
A bottled spider, one of the things he's called. Well, a hideous name, isn't it? But no, it seems he was a rather decent fellow, in many respects. Intelligent, kind. There was a man called Polydore Virgil, who was a historian who was determined to paint Richard III as black as possible, and so described him as ugly, because in those days they associated ugliness and so on with much as we do today, with wickedness. So, while on that sort of thing, how beautiful was Cleopatra?
She was minging.
Well, I think sort of a bit weird looking, but sort of striking.
Yes,
she had a sort of
probably
bit of a weird nose.
Long nose, a long pointy nose. It seemed possibly she had a long pointy nose. There's certainly no contemporary suggestion that she was particularly beautiful. They do say she had a very beautiful voice and that she was very charismatic.
She seemed sexy.
She seemed sexy, which I find is half the battle.
Her mouth is very small in that it only extends as far as the flare of her nostril.
Yeah, that isn't necessarily Cleopatra.
That's just a woman who's...
Artist's impression.
It's just a woman who's got mad with some napkins.
Yeah. She's gone serviette crazy.
Age cannot wither her, nor custom stale her infinite variety, as Barber said about her, I think. What tools do you need for do-nothing gardening?
No tools.
You think? It's also called natural gardening or natural farming. It's an Eastern version of our organic farming that has actually spread around the world.
You sort of have to dig with your hands or persuade other animals to do the gardening for you.
Yes, persuade other animals.
So you sort of persuade that a fox, he doesn't want a sort of den, but a rockery.
Well, in the case of
Get some fish in and they desperately try and dig a pond before they die.
Well, fish is right. Well, in paddy fields, where, as I say, it started in the East, they use ducks instead of herbicide. They eat the weeds, the throttly things that kill the rice, and they use carp as well that helps purify and keep the water in the paddy fields good. Now, I've got some props for you, which is more connected with the principle of the gentleman gardener, which was a familiar 18th and 19th century pastime, to be a gentleman gardener. You can have that or pass it on. There you are, and on your side, you've got props. Isn't it exciting to have props? Physical, actual props. This one. There you are.
I can see where we're going with this.
Yeah. So who's going to go first?
Well, everybody's been given fascinating devices, and I've been given a bottle with the top cut off.
That was designed by George Stephenson of the rocket fame. Was it? The first locomotive, yeah.
And it's to do with the garden?
It is to do with the garden. He was a very keen gardener.
What did he make most money out of? That or the... the train?
I think the train was a bigger hit.
Right.
But he was a very keen gentleman gardener.
I bet he was really tedious and wouldn't talk about the train in interviews and would insist on talking about his bloody...
I feel you're
in many ways, it's the work I'm proudest of. Yeah, but it's crap. It's just a bit of glass with no top.
It would protect some
You've got sunlight, I think, is an important factor here. The sunlight, because we've got glass. And what does glass do? It can magnify, Stephen, can't it?
Yes, it can.
Refraction with it, can't we?
Yeah,
okay.
or refraction.
Refraction, whatever. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's not get bogged down in that.
Yeah, quite.
We're here to talk about gardening.
I'm silly, I'm sorry.
What's
hello. No, not... You found out... No.
It's a saw.
It is. It's for a gentleman gardener.
It's got a concealed serrated blade. You won't get this through customs. I can hijack a plane with one of these. I can't make it work, though. Why won't it go forward? It'll only go that way.
Well, that's how you start the stroke.
That's how you start sawing.
It won't go back again.
Have you ever used a saw?
I don't think it's designed for exercise books.
No, there is that too. David has a point. It's for the gentleman No!
I want to saw something now.
These belong. I just want to say... These have been lent to us by the Garden Museum.
It works, it works.
Oh, it really does!
Oh, my God!
I'll tell you what, I really wish they hadn't made this set out of asbestos.
Brilliant.
That's a very good invention.
It's for the gentleman who's walking along and he sees an overhanging limb of a tree or overhanging limb of a person, for that matter, and decides to... Oh, no! What have I done? No! That's... Oh.
It's only plastic.
Yeah. And see if you can tidy it away, class. See if you can do that. It's my clever psychology.
Clever, isn't it?
Let's see if you're clever enough to hide that sword. Brilliant.
Well, that was great fun. You got any more?
No, well, David, you got yours.
Well, yes, I don't know. I mean, it's like...
Yours actually is missing a piece. The Garden Museum, to whom we're very grateful for lending us these incredibly valuable artefacts, this would have had a sort of hat in order to make it like a walking stick, a sort of leathern thing around there.
Oh, so you could hold it like that?
You hold it as a walking stick, and then when you see some obtrusive weeds, you turn it around, and almost like a golf club, you...
Just a little hoe.
Yeah, you just hoe.
Yeah.
A little hoe.
Yeah.
Not in the street sense that's used in the United States of America.
Which is the sense I usually use that syllable in.
Yes, absolutely. So, talking of hoes, Rob.
It doesn't...
Oh, hello.
Sorry, a fly landed on my buzzer and I tried to use my little hoe.
My little hoe. It's a new sort of toy for children, isn't it? My little toe. What's your little hoe for?
Well, I've absolutely no idea, other than I think it's something to do with light.
Well, it's not bad. Well, it actually forces a shape. What sort of shape would something in there have to be?
A bottle.
Oh, a vegetable.
It would have to be a straight vegetable, though, wouldn't it?
So
is it
for cucumbers?
For cucumbers, for growing straight cucumbers.
Points and of mendable walking stick.
Yes, points all round for Alan Davies. There you are.
That thing up there, though, Stephen, it may well be for cucumbers, but that picture there is very similar to a spam email that I get sent. And I have to say, I'll tell you now, don't waste your money, it doesn't work.
Dara, what have you got?
I am guessing that you put a mixture of seeds in of different sizes, because there are little holes of different sizes, and then if you're the kind of person who knows what size seed you need, then you just sprinkle it.
You're exactly...
In the most effete gardening way imaginable. There you go. And we're in the company of which actual gardens would be going, oh, well done, my lad, that's really top-quality gardening you're doing there.
I'm rather exhausted now. I think I may have to go in and have a cocktail.
I have a bit of the vapours from my gardening.
So, do-nothing gardening, where we started, is small-scale organic farming with minimal inputs.
When was the First World War first named as such?
The outbreak, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
You think they called it the First World War straight
Before
away?
it started.
It would be an act of a pessimist to call it the First World War that early, surely. It's going to be some point after 1939, isn't it?
A realist, surely.
So
there's going to be more of these.
Yeah.
At what point...
Excuse me, I think what I said, people in the box, is after 1939, which may contain 1939, but does not mean it.
No, well...
OK. No. I think after 1939 and after the Second World War are not synonymous. Now, this is just giving you time to type after 1939. Why don't you just type, Mitchell is a cop?
At this point in our Euro quiz, regulations require us to have a Call My Euro Bluff round. So, let's play Call My Euro Bluff. Good evening and welcome. No, hush, tish and pibble. With whom shall we start? We'll start with David. David, give us some Euro regulation.
It's illegal to sell bananas if they're too curvy.
What do we think? Anyone got a theory about that?
I think that's true.
It's quite a well-known Euro regulation, straight bananas.
It's utter arse of the highest order.
So you're saying a bluff, are you? Well, what do you feel?
I seem to recall this is one of those things that the Daily Mail would suddenly go, how dare they say our bananas can't be bendy? Why, it's bendy bananas made this country what it is.
Yeah.
Balls.
Yeah, you think it's balls. Would you like to reveal, then?
Balls.
It's a bluff.
It's just, you just have to say how big they are, which is fair enough, because you don't, otherwise people are selling tiny pea-sized bananas.
And the clincher is the current EU standards are identical to the pre-existing British ones and the United Nations ones and the OECD ones. I mean, nothing has changed. Nothing is new, except, as you say, the ability of the press to make things up and scare us that our bananas are going to be straightened. So, it's become rather political and rather exciting. Tara, what is yours?
OK, well, this actually is true. Trawlermen will soon be required to wear hairnets whilst fishing.
Is this because they're handling food? And
it's exactly the point is to keep them clean right from the very start. So that's
convincing stuff? What do we feel?
Well, it makes practical sense as well, of course, because the hairnet could also maybe catch any smaller fish. Like, you know, whitebait or scampi that might get in the hair. And then you just, at the end of the day, oh, there's another, that's dinner.
They're used to handling nets. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know they wear hard hats now at Smithfield Market, and they never had to. They're always making people put things on their heads.
Good point. I know, I like that. Good. What do you feel, Phil?
Yes.
You think it's true as well. So most people think this is true. Come, demonstrate, would tell us, put us out of our misery. It's a bluff as well. It's not true. In fact, I quote Richard Littlejohn. He goes, oh, what a circus. The safety Nazis have forced fishermen to wear hairnets. You couldn't make it up. Well, actually, oddly enough, Richard, you could and you did.
It wasn't as if that Littlejohn didn't make that up.
No, he didn't, in fact.
It was made up by British journalists in a bar in Brussels.
Yeah, absolutely
who tried to run to see, will people fall for this?
Yeah.
And the British press fell for it completely.
It's because they know that people love their little 5 minutes of snorting anger over the breakfast. Bloody people! Why the God? It's so...
It's ridiculous. You don't take an active interest in how your country's run for just 45 years, and look what happened.
So, my question is, what's your worst nightmare?
I don't have nightmares. I just occasionally have dreams that are quite stressful.
Oh, like what?
Increasingly, they involve having to do my A-levels again.
Oh.
For some reason, I've been busted back to the sixth form, and I have to do my A-levels again. I keep saying, this is ridiculous. I've been to university. Why am I having to do my A-levels again? But I do have to do them again. And I wake up all stressed by it.
And then have to go to the toilet.
Yeah. It's quite nice, because I reflect as I go to the toilet that I don't have to do my A-levels again. That's good news.
Are you a nightmare person, Alan?
No, but I wish I had a dream recorder.
They're boring, though, when people tell you their dreams. They're so
no, not
boring.
other people's dreams. I don't want other people's dreams. My own dreams are amazing.
People always go, oh, my hands were made of coleslaw, and then you were in it, and you had, like, really big, and you're like, this is so boring.
Have you ever been, when you hear someone describe their dream and they mention someone's in it, and then you sit there rather hoping that you're going to crop up in it as well? And then you don't always, and you sort of go, oh, I've not invaded this person's consciousness enough.
Sometimes I have dreams where I need to fight someone and I have no strength. And I'm supposed to get somewhere and I can never get there. And I'm impressed by all the various obstacles I can put in my own way that I invent in the night.
But those aren't the most common sort of ones. The thing about being chased, not being able to get to the toilet in time. Being exposed publicly naked is a very big thing, and how you respond to that. So if it doesn't bother you, that suggests you are secure in real life. If you're embarrassed, it suggests you are uncomfortable about something. If you don't notice that you're naked, I think you have a lack of self-awareness, is, I think, what it probably means. Do you sleep on your left or your right side? Because that may have some impact on whether you dream or not.
Do most people have one side?
Oh.
I like
Are you a tosser and turner?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, my God, this is a dream, and you're going to wake up and go to the toilet in a minute. We're all in your dream.
So what did you say, left or right?
Right.
OK, so that fits with the study that they did in 2004. You are more likely to have disturbing dreams if you sleep on your left-hand side than if you sleep on your right-hand side.
So I'm good. So
Yeah.
you toss and turn.
It could be either way. I didn't realise. Now I'm making a choice.
Yes.
You know, am I just going for rest or adventure?
What side does your wife sleep on?
I'm not aware of her having a preference for one side
So
or the other.
you have one side of the bed, right? Like,
yeah.
Surely... See, I...
Yeah, I'm not an idiot.
So my husband makes me sleep facing away from him because I breathe too loudly.
That's quite weird, isn't it?
Well, like those two in the picture.
Oh, yeah.
When I got married, another thing I found out, that it wasn't usual to put your underwear and your socks on before you put any of your clothes on.
Well, you're supposed to put it
Nobody
on
else.
afterwards.
No. Did you marry a
superhero?
I put my underwear on,
Yeah.
and then I put my socks on,
Right.
and then I put my outerwear on.
OK, and what's wrong with that?
Well, apparently it's weird to put your socks on before you put your trousers and your top on.
I think your husband is telling you that things he does are things that everyone does. I think it is perfectly reasonable to put your socks on before your trousers.
It's also perfectly reasonable to breathe while you're asleep.
How would you like to have Cedric Gibbons nude on your mantelpiece?
It's not Stanley Gibbons, the philatelist.
No! He's a Hollywood figure, remarkable Hollywood figure, Cedric Gibbons. He was the premier art director stroke production designer of Hollywood for MGM. And in 1928, he was asked to design something. What
Gone
might
with
that
the
have
Wind.
been? No.
The Oscar.
Thank you.
Oh.
The Oscar. And not only did he design it, he won 11 of them. He was nominated for 36 and won 11. Almost all Oscars, as you know, were won by Walt Disney, who won how many?
109.
26.
20, yeah.
And Cedric Gibbons won 11, and all the rest went to Emma Thompson. Oh, look, she is. Oh,
Lovely
excellent.
winning smile.
Do you remember which one that was? Sense and
That's
Sensibility or
Sense and
Howard's Way?
Sensibility.
Howard's End.
Howard's Way.
I nearly said Howard's Way.
That interesting boat script I wrote.
But you were nominated for 3 others.
Yes.
Do you remember what they were?
Remains of the Day, In the Name of the Father.
Best Supporting Actress. And you were also nominated for Sense and
Oh, yeah.
Sensibility as Best
OK,
Actress.
I forgot.
I can remember all the GCSEs I did. I would definitely remember every Oscar nomination. I think when, like, the rest of my brain had melted, I fed through a tube, those 5 names of films would still come out.
I made an Oscar. I actually made a genuine Oscar. I went to the factory in Chicago where they were made.
Is it a mould, like a jelly mould?
Well, there is a mould, but it's pure metal Britannium.
Or do you have to hew it?
Well, you buff it.
If you have
You get
to,
a damn good buffing.
If you have to hew it, I mean, I'm not being rude, but if I was winning an Oscar this year, I'd say, can I have one of the ones made by the professional? That was Stephen Fry balls up.
I was well
wonky. In other news, who can tell me which former Tory MP once scaled a building to break into his own office?
It was Rory.
It was Rory. Very impressive for a civilian, yeah? We know you can't say, but it's lovely to have you here. Who has been claiming they're a spy recently? Relative of the fantasist-in-chief?
Stanley Johnson.
Correct. Stanley Johnson. According to him, in the 1960s, he was recruited while studying at Oxford and giving training which included the task of blowing up the power station in Blyth on the Northumberland coast, which he did successfully.
And why was Stanley Johnson only a spy for 6 months? Stanley himself told The Times, "My incompetence might have cost people their lives." It's a bit of a family trait. This is the news that MI5 want to recruit more people from diverse backgrounds. Rory Stewart has denied being a spy, but has considered going undercover. He recently told New Yorker magazine that he considered living on a council estate for 2 or 3 years to better understand British poverty. Well, you could try, Rory, but thanks to your old party, there's a 30-fucking-year waiting list. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features a guest publication from Rory's old stomping ground, the Penrith Ramblers Group newsletter. And we start with what mocked for looking like Phil Collins?
Lewisham Town Hall. That's right, isn't it? I can tell. It's Lewisham Town Hall.
Not right.
But people say it all the time. It's Phil Collins. Oh, no, it's Lewisham Town Hall.
The answer is statue of baby Jesus, mocked for looking like Phil
Oh,
Collins.
I've got to see this.
Oh. This is a church in Mexico who accidentally installed this.
OK, give us a clue. Which is which?
And it's quite good, really. It's Genesis.
Yeah. Other mistake news. Why have Google been suffering from rogue anuses?
Oh, yes. 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 This is... there's a...
Yes.
Yeah. There's a computer program which misreads old print, so arms comes out as anus, so farewell to anus. I drape my anus across her shoulder in a comforting manner. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. They sound as if I'm making it up, but I'm not, am I, David?
You're not making it up.
No.
The scanning technology they use to turn books into e-books can't differentiate between arms and anus in certain typefaces.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from John Mackay Wilson's Tales of the Borders. Poor Janet shuddered at the words which she heard him utter, for with strange and wicked oaths he vowed vengeance on the individual who'd persecuted him, and she flung her anus around his neck and kissed his forehead. From Georgina Bragg's Matisse on the Loose, she grabbed my anus and positioned my body in the direction of the East Gallery, and we started walking. And in the complete works of Washington Irving, there is a reference to the great captain who had been one of his comrades in anus. Are there any other words that Google Books scanning technology is confused?
Yeah, I can't do tax.
Yes, it reads tax as free. No, it's burn and bum get muddled up as well, as in a patent for a carrier for an integrated circuit that talks of bum-in electrical contacts.
God, Scotland, what happens? It's bums night.
Where they all join anuses and sing Old Lang Syne.
Why was it hard for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle?
Guys, to the right!
This is because it was a gate, wasn't it? It was a gate.
No. Christ, if you remember, says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God.
Of course, and these were the days before liquidizers.
Yeah.
So there was no chance of pureeing up the thing and getting a straw, and I mean, it would be a mess, but it would be doable, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, because remember, this is a rich man we're talking about. He would have people to
He'd
do
have
this
all
for
the
him.
white goods.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
If there's other things.
obviously, what happened is a lot of rich men read the Bible and thought, that can't be right, surely. So there are two get-out clauses. One was this idea that there was an eye of the needle gate in Jerusalem city walls, but there is absolutely no contemporary historical or archaeological evidence.
Well, actually, in biblical times, women's hands were significantly bigger than they are today, so a needle's eye could be 40 or 50 foot across. Enormous.
You still want that rich man to get through, don't you?
Well, the thing is, what someone told me, I might say, at my bloody school, which is still going, and it turns out it's talking bullshit.
I bet it was a private
It was a private school
where they don't like to get on the wrong
said
side of rich people.
There are two sorts of gate to get into cities in those days. One that was quite wide, one that was quite narrow, and a fully laden camel couldn't squeeze through quite a narrow gate, and those were called eyes of needles. And what Jesus wasn't doing was being sort of sarky and going, yeah, it's about as easy for a rich man to get into heaven as to get a planet into a shoe. He was actually saying that if the camel was no longer fully laden, hence the wealth had been, dumped somewhere, then the camel went in easy as
I
you
don't know
like.
how rich you are if all your stuff is on the back of one camel.
But it depends if it's diamonds.
Yeah, damn
really
rich.
rich. They hadn't found all the South African diamond mines then, so diamonds worth even more.
Yeah, good point.
In the coronation of George IV, all the diamonds in the crown jewels were hired. The King of England wasn't rich enough to own enough diamonds for one poxy coronation. That's how expensive diamonds
Can you
were.
hire
now,
diamonds?
any sort of rap star's got
Of course
those.
you can. At the Oscars, all the actors hire diamonds.
That would be the Everest of unsure engagements, wouldn't it? I've just rented this for a week. Let's see how things go. Let's wait till after you put
But
it
no,
out.
you're absolutely right, David. That is precisely what...
Jesus was being
Jesus
sarcastic.
meant exactly what he said.
Should have just said, you can't. If you're rich, you're going to hell.
Yeah. How do you get a whole row of seats to yourself on a Virgin Airways flight?
Oh, if you're really fat.
That would, I think they might be able to get rid of an arm. But I don't think they'd let you on if you were any fatter.
No, but like really fat. Oh, I see what you mean.
Die is the right answer. You'd have to die. Yeah.
You can't make people sit next to the dead. That's the truth,
Basically,
isn't it?
I think that would be what it was. And if you're flying, say, London to New York, if you're near enough and someone dies, you'd turn around and all the other passengers go, no, really? There's some consideration. But once you pass that point of near return, as they call it, then there's nothing you can do except go on to New York.
But what if the plane's full? Do they keep a row for the dead just in case? And in which case, if they keep a row for the dead, what if two people die?
Exactly.
There's always a row at the
If there's an
back,
outbreak
and
of sickness.
the crew use it for having a kip. What it means is the crew will then have to be awake.
Yes.
Right. The dead bloke, that'll piss them off.
Does it happen a lot, though?
Oh, now, this is what's interesting. British Airways have about 10 deaths a year in flight.
Well, that food is just...
for 36 million passengers. So if you extrapolate out to the rather amazing 3.5 billion passengers that fly every year, that means there must be around 1,000 deaths a year. And different airlines have different ways of doing it. Singapore Airlines have a corpse cupboard. I don't know why it's funny, but it is. So no one need even know there's a death.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's also faulty towers, isn't it?
If I ever die on a plane, I should like to be stored in the overhead lockers.
For the rest of time.
Yeah.
British Airways, however, you get a good deal if you die because you go to first class. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
At last.
One long-established steward said, many years ago, we used to give them a vodka and tonic, a Daily Mail and eye shades and tell passengers they were fine. We don't do that anymore. Yeah, I think... It's bad enough being dead, but having to hold a Daily Mail...
Daily Mail and other newspapers, not just the Daily Mail, when they talk about their circulation, they are also including the newspapers that they give away for free. And so I don't think the airlines or any of those kind of institutions actually pay for the newspapers.
Oh, really?
So it's mainly, the Daily Mail is mainly dead people on aeroplanes.
Yes.
But the dead are very, very right-wing.
How would you make your house the most famous house in Britain?
Oh, that's easy.
Yep.
You murder lots and lots of people, dismember them, and bury them in the garden.
You marry the Queen. You marry the Queen.
Yes.
And you say, you're not living there in those... No, love, you're not living in those palaces anymore.
You're living in 3 Ironside Crescent, Carlisle.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Those would work. Yep, those would work.
Some sort of spectacular suicide? I suppose, actually, the murdering people would work better,
Murdering's
which I
probably
think
the
is
best.
sad.
But this is a Is it bet. balloons? Is it like in the film Up? You just tie loads of balloons and your house goes... "Ooh."
Oh, that would be sweet. That would be. This was a bet that took place in 1810 between Samuel Beazley and Theodore Hook. That Hook couldn't make any house he chose the most famous residence in London in 1 week. He had a week in which to do it, but in fact he sort of... I mean, he prepared over the week, but it all happened in one day. Yeah?
He started
You know this?
ordering goods, all kinds of different goods from all kinds
4,000 different tradesmen and services in all the commercial directories all over London. He started ordering chimney sweeps. So first thing in the morning, there were 12 chimney sweeps, all arriving like that. And then more and more and more and more and more arrived. I mean, it became absolutely gigantic. 12 coal carts, there were cake makers, doctors, apothecaries, surgeons, lawyers, priests for
We've all
dead
done
bodies,
this, haven't we?
undergraduates, hat makers, haberdashers, bootmakers, fishmongers, butchers' boys. A dozen pianos arrived. And before long, the governor of the Bank of England had turned up to see what the fuss was about. It was in Berners Street, just off north of Oxford Street. And there it is.
That sign doesn't fit that bit of wall.
It doesn't really. And yet, I suppose if they put it the way it would, you'd have to read it in portrait rather than
needed to go back to the
landscape.
drawing board with that one.
I think you're right.
Got that all wrong.
Or just chill out about the whole thing.
I could have folded it round, mate.
Is it a bit like, so the equivalent is like going on the internet and ordering the lot?
Yes, exactly.
I'll have everything.
Exactly, basically. And the poor woman whose name was Mrs. Tottenham was just besieged. I mean, it wasn't his house.
He didn't live there.
No, he chose it. No, he just chose this house. That was the point of the bet. I can make that house, 54 Berners Street, the most famous house in London. Theodore Hook betted a man called Beazley that he could make 54 Berners Street the most famous house in London. If by some terrible, terrible concatenation of circumstances, both my co-pilot and I on this flight were suddenly taken ill, how would you land this plane?
Can't they just land themselves on an instruments landing?
Can't you? I'd stop reading the Kindle on the steering wheel.
That would be a wise start, yes.
Don't you radio... There's the co-pilot slumped, normally.
Yes.
In these situations.
Yeah, someone talks you in.
And somebody talks you in?
That's what happens in the movies, definitely, isn't it?
Yes. Like Robert Duvall probably would be good. That's who I'd ring.
Or Lloyd Bridges in the case of Airplane, the movie.
Perfect choice.
Yeah.
Presumably there are legal problems with someone talking you down, though, because you could then subsequently sue if it was interpreted by your relatives that you were given bad advice. So probably these days the air traffic controller would refuse to give advice and say, "I'm sorry, we're not covered for my saying."
That's right. You'd have to sign a waiver and sort of text it to them, and then they would insurance would cover you to be talked down.
It is a minefield. Extraordinarily and happily, it has never occurred in commercial airline travel history that someone has been, as it were, oh gosh, can anyone fly this plane because the pilot and co-pilot are ill or dead? It's never actually happened, but it would be fraught with difficulty. They have tried various simulations. For example, those with American civil private pilot licenses in America who can fly light planes were invited onto simulators of big jets. Yeah. And one of them couldn't even operate the seat that moved him towards the control. Another one turned the radio off. Another one turned off the autopilot and instantly crashed the plane. So the fact is, it's incredibly difficult.
Stephen, am I allowed to say that in your uniform how incredibly unlike a pilot you look?
So what do I look like instead? Be brutal, be frank.
No, I think you'd be the chap who calls himself the bursar. He comes round, he's got a big leather wallet and takes money for duty-free.
Yeah, calls himself the bursar.
Yeah.
Yes.
He calls himself the bursar?
Yes, I think he does, yeah.
Or the purser?
The purser.
The bursar is like the one that does the money for a...
public school.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What what kind of planes are you flying on?
Yeah.
Yes, the bursar will be collecting money for the end of term jamboree.
Here on a Charterhouse Air.
Yeah.
The bursar with the trolley, and then with the drinks, the groundsman.
Anyway, the fact is it's fraught with difficulty. The first problem you would have is simply getting into the cockpit, because since 9/11, of course, cockpits are locked. And if the pilot and the co-pilot were truly too ill to be able to fly, they may well be too ill even to let you in to the cockpit. But
do they have a secret knock? When they go and give them their lunch, though, surely they have to get in.
Yes.
So they must have a coded knock or something. Like, it's me. I've got your lunch. Something like that. And they go, oh, must be the lunch.
It must be, yeah. It must be to do with the lunch. The lunch is. Now, why do I say lunch is?
Because there's more than one.
But why is there more? You are accruing points at a fantastic rate.
God, I tell you what.
Yes, there are more than one. But why would there be more than one lunch? Why would they?
They have to eat different meals.
Yes, the pilot and the co-pilot must eat different meals.
Oh, in case one of them gets botulism.
Exactly, so that if one is by accident poisoned or whatever. And in the case of extra long-haul flights, there are 3 pilots, not 2.
So you can't get into the cockpit. It's very, very dangerous. Never been done.
Yeah,
So...
and if it was on autopilot, you'd be able, obviously, to fly level and it would continue. But once you got into the landing situation, yes, the kind of film scenario would take over, whereby you would be told how to operate the flaps and at what speed. But there are so many variables in terms of glide path and vertical and horizontal axes and so on. It really is extraordinarily difficult. There is an auto-land system.
There's no way of flying it remotely, then, from the ground? Like with just somebody with a Wii or something, you know.
I don't know. Maybe one day.
Someone comes in the room.
What? Why?
It's a horrifying thought, but fortunately, as I say, it never has yet happened in major commercial air travel. How much of the moon can you see from the Earth?
Well, you can see one side of it.
Yes. There is this strange thing called libration, which is it's like vibration beginning with an L. It's a thing that was noted by quite a few of the early astronomers.
Can I say, sorry, Stephen, but if that's an acceptable way of defining a word, what? Libration. It's like vibration, but beginning with an L.
Just so you can picture it in your heads. Is that bad?
I was with you already, just with libration.
I thought you might have heard it as libation or something like that. That's all.
What does it mean?
Well, I was about to tell you, and then somebody came and said... No, I'll tell you. You get this kind of jiggling effect. Basically, what it comes down to is you can see about 59% of the surface
at one
of the
time
moon from Earth. Obviously, when it's a new moon or whatever, then you see it's a lot less. But you can see 59% of the surface rather than just 50.
You know when you find a bee and it's crawling on its last legs?
I always rescue them.
You give it honey. It's the only thing they eat. Makes sense when you think about it. No point just talking to it, give it honey.
They're very much a one-recipe species, aren't they?
I'm intrigued because I generally give it the sole of my shoe, but you know, not to be harsh, but you know,
I think treading on a struggling, crawling bee, trying to get back to the hive.
What? As opposed to rehabilitate it.
I like honey. I have it on my porridge. You murderer.
Yeah, but
you depend on bees.
We need the bees.
OK, so in future I should lure the bee back. And sorry, do I get a syringe of honey, just a tiny amount of honey? How do I feed this
spoon of honey? Leave it with the honey. Don't tread on it. It should be criminal offence. You should be arrested. But you should be locked up. You know where? In a hive.
But isn't it true though that a bee in his entire lifetime makes an absolutely tiny amount of honey overall? I mean, just a minute amount of honey.
Yeah,
so you don't have to give much rehabilitating honey to this one bee before the nation, the world, is making a net loss from that bee. I mean, it's useless. If you only get 1 teaspoon of honey from a whole bee's lifetime, and every time we have to get it back on its feet, it takes a teaspoon and a half, suddenly there's no honey at all.
This is more honey than this bee has seen in its life.
Yeah. You're insulting it, apart from anything else. It's like showing a very tired mason a whole cathedral.
Well, let's say that you're in between Alan and Dara. So, like Alan, you want to help the bee give it honey, but like Dara, you also want to kill. What you can do is you get what I would term too much honey, and you see the bee, and you pour molten... But hear me out.
All right, OK.
And then you watch him die a slow...
I carry on with... Yes, I've now heard you out.
Yes.
And that's no better.
Well, no, that's worse.
Yeah.
Much worse than what I did.
So you're being humane, are you?
Yeah, I am.
You're not. You're getting a kick out of it.
Let's forget that.
Drowning the bee ironically in honey. You want some honey? How much honey do you want? Is this too much honey?
Yeah.
Oh, not so keen on the honey now, are you?
Very good. Well, thank you for that interesting, fierce and, I think, productive debate. To demonstrate our sincere commitment to health and safety, we've made you all fill in some forms earlier, which I hope you've all done.
Why is there a picture of Richard Whiteley?
Because you can take your hat off if you like.
Thanks, because my hair would be ruined.
Yes, you couldn't have that. You all took the white... Fly away hair. You all took the Whiteley test, which is a test for hypochondriasis, to test whether or not you are hypochondriacs.
The test was a bit of a stupid test, though.
The tests are, aren't they, as a rule? What was particularly stupid about it?
Every question in the test you had to answer 1 to 3, 4, 5, and 1 meant not at all, 2 meant a little bit, 3 moderately, 4 quite a lot, 5 loads and loads.
Yeah.
And then one of the questions was, do you worry about your health a lot? And so how can you answer moderately to I moderately worry about my health a lot. I worry about my health a lot a little bit. I worry about my health a lot. I mean, the answers didn't go with the questions.
No, you're right, they didn't think it through, did
No,
they?
and it's all, I mean, how long did they spend on it? 3 minutes? Because if it was 4, they're idiots.
OK, here we are. Ross, you scored 20.
Right.
And any score between 14 and 28 is not a hypochondriac.
Right.
My tendency with those things is to put the thing basically all the way through the middle.
Yes.
Do you want to kill children moderately? Don't want to be too much either way.
This test is all about how much you're worried about your health.
Yes.
But the results are meaningless unless we also have medicals. Because it may be that Ross is at death's door, in which case he's an idiot for being so lame.
That's true.
Or it may be that one of us who's come out as obsessed with our health is also at death's door, in which case that's a very sane response.
Once again, your relentless, urgent and slightly worried logic is making this a nonsense.
Ruining the programme.
No, it's
again,
not. It's absolutely spot on. But
I didn't read the questions.
Didn't you?
No, because you always put 5. That's the point of all those things, don't you? I'm always absolutely terrified of it or not bothered at all.
This explains why Alan is a mild hypochondriac, Ross is not a hypochondriac, David is a borderline hypochondriac, and you are dangerously...
Well, actually, I am. I didn't know that it was about hypochondria, because, as I say, I didn't read the questions, but I am. I've got every single disease there is. I mean, really, every one.
Are you telling me you've got elephantitis?
Yes. I've got a twisted testicle, a hideous skin disease, 2 slit discs, a very...
And a partridge!
I've got every conceivable disease there is. I went outside for a cigarette before the show, and I thought, for once, I'm not going to get lung cancer because I'm wearing this.
What conclusion did the great biologist Stephen Jay Gould draw from a lifetime study of fish?
Oh.
Yeah.
They haven't got any legs.
Is that his lifetime study?
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't his lifetime study of a fish.
Yeah. After a while, they smell.
Yeah. He's a bit thick, and he just stared at me, and they haven't got any legs.
Starfish don't have brains. It's the kind of Louis Walsh of the aquatic world. They really don't have brains, they're starfish.
And they're not really fish, are they, starfish, to be honest?
Well, the word fish is in there, which kind of qualifies them, I think.
Well, is a starfish a fish? Is a jellyfish a fish?
Well, yeah,
cuttlefish a fish?
Yes, I believe. But the starfish...
A crayfish is a lobster.
There's a division, isn't there, in the world, whether it should be down to sort of experts in biology, whether things are fish, or whether it should be down to menus.
Yes.
I think, for example, a crayfish comes under fish in a menu.
He looks like he's reading the sell-by date on that.
He does, doesn't he? Stephen Jay Gould was very great. He's dead now. He's very great. He won a Nobel Prize. He was a paleontologist and an extraordinary biologist. And he came to a conclusion which is...
They can feel no love.
No, that they... that there is no such thing as a fish. A fish has no biological meaning. There is just...
Well, so I'm absolutely right.
Your
Go
menu.
with menus.
On a menu it does. But in a menu, a fish is not the same as shellfish or seafood, is it?
It often comes in the same bit and separate from pudding.
Things that live in the sea.
Fish and a pudding are different.
How can something not be something? Something can't be not something, can it? But if you've created a something, then something has to be that something, otherwise you haven't created a something. So it has to be a fish if there is the idea of a fish in the first place.
I swear there's a philosophy somewhere.
Slow down, Plato.
There's some sort of ontological argument going there, and of course, to us, that we use the word fish. But biologically speaking, a salmon is more related to, say, a camel than it is to a hagfish. Like, there are lots of things that fly, like a bumblebee flies, a vulture flies, and there are flying lizards. They're not all birds.
No.
But we call things that swim in the sea fish, and actually, biologically, evolutionarily, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other at all. So, after a lifetime study of fish, biologist Stephen Jay Gould concluded that there's no such thing as a... would you believe that they put a man on the moon?
Who? Hey, these guys?
NASA.
Oh, NASA. Yes, yeah, I think so.
You believe that?
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yes, you believe it. Good, that's all. That's sort of all at the end of the question, really. But you probably know that quite a lot of people don't believe it.
Ah,
No.
Yeah, but, well, I sort of believe one thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which is, I kind of believe that they might have done some mocked-up fake photographs.
Really, why?
Because I was shown... Someone convinced me of it.
Yeah.
By talking about the angle of light and the shadows on the moon and all that. But then I did an advert with Patrick Moore, and I said, "So, Patrick, did they land on the moon?" And he looked so annoyed with me.
Yeah.
Actually, he explained to me how he had helped map the moon for NASA, and he'd spent years on the project, and the landing site was partly his idea, and if I ever spoke to him again, he was going to be sick in my eyes.
They are rather tight. If you'd spoken to Buzz Aldrin, he might have punched you.
I was going to say...
Buzz Aldrin punched someone because he just got so tired of these conspiracy arses.
I think it was a television documentary about...
Well, there have been several, of course.
You know, look at this photo. This couldn't possibly have been taken on the moon. This is obviously taken in a studio.
You're getting me started now, because one gets very sort of strange about this. But there are a lot of conspiracies. 6% of Americans believe that man didn't land on the moon, but 25% of Britons believe that they didn't. So that's a quarter of our nation are not convinced, apparently.
That's so depressing.
Isn't it?
It is.
The flag, it's one of the things I read...
the flag is another thing,
yes.
yes.
The flag, and you
yeah,
think,
but there it is.
Well, obviously they've starched the flag because they wanted to get a good photograph of it. They've stiffened the flag.
No, they haven't stiffened it. That's the point. The fact it's rumpled. There's no breath of wind out there, obviously, because you're in space, which is, as it were, a vacuum. But what there is movement. If you impart movement to something, it doesn't stop moving for a long time because there's nothing to... There's no resistance against it. So they unpacked it, unfurled it, put it down, and it moved back and forth. People said, breeze. Ha-ha. As if, A, they would be stupid enough to fake it and allow the tape that had the breeze in it to go out.
But also, if you went to the moon, the least you'd expect is a flag moved a bit strangely. You know what I mean? You expect him to make the soup dragon, and you think, OK, he's not there. The flag moves a bit strangely, I can go with that.
Yeah. Why isn't one of them holding up a camera? Because you can see him reflected, the one taking the picture's reflected in the visor of the one, and he's not holding up a camera like that, you see. But that's because they didn't, in the visors, put a camera up in front of their visor. They were mounted.
You couldn't really actually imagine them getting a camera out, clip,
like that.
wind it up.
I'd like to go to the moon.
You would like?
Oh,
yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah. I mean, two of the other things, just in case people are saying, but you haven't mentioned the clincher. One was the idea that below the lunar module that landed, there was no crater or sense of disturbed dust. The fact is, the engine's cut off and it hovered down and it very, very quickly landed. And unlike in science fiction films, it doesn't send out spears of flame as it descends. That just didn't happen. So,
because it was designed by, human brains and geniuses, and not a lot of people sitting tapping away at the internet who've got to go up to work in the morning.
Yeah,
Who do you trust here?
We are in trouble as a species if people refuse to believe in things that they couldn't actually do themselves.
So true. So true. And the other one was the footprints. They said, look, there's too much moisture because look how clear they are. Only a sort of caked mud could do that, but actually you could do that with flour. The fact is, it's just very fine ground, and and there's, of course, it's a vacuum again. It coheres. And the other thing with the mirrors that Apollo 12 astronauts put on the moon, which are now used for bouncing lasers off, for detecting, for example, how far the moon is getting away from us. And you can make incredibly accurate measurements because of mirrors on the surface of the moon. And perhaps to me the clinching one is that America's enemy at the time in the space race was the Soviet Union. And not once did they make a suggestion that they thought America hadn't done it. They never said, no, we know this was hoax.
Yeah.
The fact is, for every ill-conceived argument that the moon landings were a hoax, there's a perfectly logical explanation to put our minds at rest.
And lastly, how did the monkey wrench get its name?
I'm nervous of this because this was a fact that came up on The Unbelievable Truth.
The marvellous Radio 4 quiz show.
It has happened before that facts we've asserted on The Unbelievable Truth have been, I think the word is mocked. This programme for being factually incorrect. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I don't do all the fact-checking.
Ditto, I have to say.
But on that show, what was given to me on a piece of paper to read out was the fact that the monkey wrench was named after a person whose name was something like Monka, and he was some kind of, I don't know, technical...
You could not have parenthesised it more, but nonetheless, we are beastly rivals of yours. And you did mock us in your last series when you...
Again, well, the person that handed me the piece of paper put on it a piece of QI fact error mockery.
Exactly, we had said...
It's turning into war. All I want is peace.
I know, you're right. From now on, it is peace.
But we're like, in this war, we're like the southern states. We haven't got the resources, and we're going to turn to racism as a result.
But no, we incorrectly said that Descartes, René Descartes, believed that monkeys could speak but didn't, because if they did, it would put them to work. In fact, Descartes reported that he had heard this belief, and you correctly said that and mocked us correctly.
Right.
It was a rap over the knuckles. But there you go, that's minus 50 to David, of course.
So
The answer, actually, is it's a kind of rather gigantic, not quite sure. The Americans
so we might be
claim
right.
it. No, we know that it isn't Mr. Monkey, because an article written in the 1880s said that the true inventor, Charles Monkey, was dying in poverty despite inventing this incredibly useful thing. The problem here is the term monkey wrench was used in England as early as 1807, and these articles were written in the 1880s, so it's just obviously completely impossible for that to be the case. It's generally believed that it's the face of it reminded people of the jaws of a monkey, you know, or that a monkey version of something in the Navy is a sort of rigging up of something.
But it's not all bad news for Mr. Monkey, because he is the originator of the phrase, spank the monkey. So, you know, he didn't die in vain.
Exactly. Well, there we go. So I'm sorry about that, minus 50. Nobody knows how or why a monkey wrench is so called, though we do know that it wasn't for the reason given on David's otherwise excellent and superb. Shakespeare coined over 1,000 new words, but not all of them caught on. Here are some of the ones that didn't. See if you can put them into a sentence for me. Sweltery, quatch.
Quatch. I've got a sweltery quatch at the moment.
Already we're there, aren't we?
It happened when I put my kicky wickies on. Cockle me function. I've always been near-legged.
You're a boggler in those times.
I've boggled me Carlot.
You're Foxian. What happened to cockled boggler?
Carlot, that's a thing. That's where people sell
That's a sexy
second-hand
garage.
cars.
Yes, well, that's true, actually.
It's just well
It has
ahead of its
taken
time.
way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
A boggler is a very clumsy burglar.
Or it's a burglar that can't believe the stuff he's getting his hands on. Look at this DVD player.
Well, he used it to mean a hesitator, one who boggles. I don't know if that was in boggling the mind.
What is a kicky wicky? Is that like a Russell Brand's version of a football or something?
It's an affectionate term for a wife. Oh, my dear Kicky Wicky.
A kicky wicky is not an affectionate term.
Domestic violence is a lot more acceptable.
Oh, the old smashy washy. The old battery wattery. Punchy wunchy.
And a quatch. Or is it a quatch? It's actually an adjective.
A quatch.
Quatch. Quatch means a bit podgy, a bit quatch.
Oh, you're a bit quatchy.
Yeah. Sort of, yeah.
Luckily, I'm wearing a surgical truss.
Plump, shall we say. Whappened, or wappened, is corrupt. That's never really caught on, has it? But look at the ones that did catch on. Here's just a small example of words that are first used in Shakespeare. Accessible, acutely assembled, barefaced, beguiling, critic, even-handed, eyeball, Frenchwoman, hunchbacked, neglected, overpower, promising, radiance, revealing, rose-cheeked, school day synonymous, three-legged.
French woman is a bit of a stretch. French woman. He invented it.
Before that, invented taking the space out.
Yes, you may have done. Even-handed, bewitchment.
This is
symbol.
my wife. She is a thingamajig. I don't know. What can I call her? Oh, French woman.
Thank you, She's
French woman. French woman.
Of course, you can't be absolutely certain he invented all these because they may have been in use before, but he is often the first printed source we have for them.
He presumably had to have a pretty good idea that people would understand what he was going on about.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I've done it again.
Oh, no.
You know, this bit of rough is not behaving. I've said that before. Actually, I'm going to make a lava lamp for your edification, pleasure and entertainment. I have here a little tube. This is actually a tube that usually contains tennis balls. And this is a mixture of vegetable oil and water. And I have here a little
Quite hard to mix,
syringe.
by the way, those two things.
Yeah, they are.
They separate, don't they, David?
Yes.
Hello. So you pump the colour in, and I'm going to use Alka-Seltzer, or any effervescent hangover cure pill will do.
Are you going to say don't try this at home?
Well, you can, actually. Honestly, it's not like a Mender. It's not going to explode. And cue light. Way, there we go. Pop it on, and then as the effervescent works, it begins... Yeah, there we are, beginning to get the effect. And there we are, the colour's now beginning to come into it. And you're getting a sort of lava lamp there, obviously. Professionally, they're made more permanent. A lava lamp, ladies and gentlemen. You've all got the equipment, as it were, so you can make one yourselves.
So exciting.
Aren't you lucky?
Yeah,
Already, we've begun with the thrilling excitement.
Awesome.
Will the show have to pay something to the format holders of the Generation Game?
If you'd like to pen.
It is a bit Generation Game, you're right.
Okay, let's just...
What do we do with that?
We inject colour in.
Inject colour. You've all got different colours to make it thrilling.
Don't
Don't put too much of the effervescent hangover cure.
I put all of it in.
Did you? Don't put too many pills in. And now just put a little of the...
No, put loads in.
Just
It's brilliant. Look at your bullshit lava lamp.
Mine is dry.
Your lava lamp is...
Hey!
Well, steal another one.
It's all happening in our corner.
You see, when did it explode now? Hopefully.
I can... No, you don't. No.
You're no fun. Stick another one in.
I'm a responsible adult. There has to be one on this programme.
Look at all these little balls.
I'm nervous of having
Stop saying that.
This genuinely reminds me so much of school. You said, don't put all the Alka-Seltzer in, and then Alan said, we're putting it all in. As a result. And I've gone along with him, and now I'm frightened.
You know the one in...
Sir did it.
You made me laugh. You made me laugh, David. I told you before.
You're in trouble.
It's not funny. There's nothing funny about making people laugh. Well, maybe, but oh dear, I've got oily hands.
Mitchell's taken the lid off, sir. Mitchell's taken the lid off. It's not serious.
This is most unfortunate.
Are you...
Why haven't you put any little balls in yours?
I beg your pardon.
This is not how it was supposed to happen at all.
I love how broad Stephen's favourite is.
Industrial... We all know why Alan has industrial-strength tissues. Now, what are your chances of survival in a plane crash?
Ooh.
I'm guessing it's going to be one of these where there are loads and loads and loads of plane crashes, but usually no one dies.
Yeah, it's more or less true.
So statistically...
Yeah. I imagine it swings on the whistle that you get on the life jacket. I think that's probably what saves the lives for people. And if it's that kind of plane crash that's never happened, where the plane lightly bobs onto the water, everyone gets out nicely, takes their high heels off, inflates the thing, tops it up, and then, oh, help doesn't seem to have come. I know. Oh, that's all right. Here comes the American
It does
Army
rather
now.
rely on someone
Can you
having
think
quite
them-
selective hearing.
Can you
Going, I
imagine-
didn't hear that plane go down, but...
Imagine anything more... I can't imagine anything more pathetic.
What if there's a
than
plane
load
crash?
of air travellers
What if there's
bobbing
a
along
plane
in the water going... Beep, beep, beep.
What they should give is everyone gets a different note.
Yeah,
You get a little songbook.
Now, wouldn't it be tragic, though, if you were playing a little song and one of the notes didn't go off and you went... Didn't make it.
Didn't make it.
Oh, dear.
I see Dave's been eaten by sharks. We're going to have to play chopsticks.
Yeah.
Let's do South Pacific. We can do the show right here.
I heard a great, an urban legend about the brace position. Someone told me that the reason they want you to put your head between your legs is so that, to preserve the dental record.
I don't
Yeah,
think it's true.
I heard that as well. And actually, I don't know why they didn't just tell people that. You know, in the unlikely event of your death, I'm sure you'll all agree you'd like to be identified.
Leave.
Bite down hard on your own armrest.
Can you name the family in Swiss Family Robinsons? Yeah.
Robinson.
No, indeed. No, there is no family called Robinson in Swiss Family Robinson, no. In Swiss Family Robinson is a book by a man called Weiss, a Swissman.
Is it a reference to Robinson Crusoe?
To reference to Robinson Crusoe. They're a Swiss Robinson. Yeah, that's what it is. They don't actually have a surname. They're called Ma and Pa and Ernst and Franz and names like that. But the weird thing is there have been films in which they're called the Robinsons. It's just a misapprehension.
Are they even Swiss?
Well, they are Swiss. They are Swiss. When it was translated by William Godwin, he called it the Family Robinson Crusoe. Because that's the idea, it was a Robinson Crusoe family, as it were. A family undergoing a Robinson Crusoe experience. It's a good title. And that got mysteriously changed in 1818, 4 years later, to the Swiss Family Robinson. A third of all the film and TV adaptations have them as being called Robinson.
I think they need a better title altogether.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just like a sort of shortening of the pitch.
It is,
isn't it?
isn't it?
Swiss family like Robinson Crusoe. It's a Swiss family meets Robinson Crusoe.
Exactly.
The two most entertaining things we can think of, Robinson Crusoe and a Swiss family. This is dynamite. As long as we can come up with a good title.
Which military leader does this mighty Norfolk oak commemorate? Yes, Joe.
Nigel Farage.
Well.
It's a very big oak.
No, it isn't mighty, is it? So it's not that old, in fact.
Yeah, it could be...
It's about 80 years old, not quite 80.
Not quite 80.
It was a
Kitchener.
sapling. It was a sapling 78 years ago.
So, it'd be too late for Kitchener.
Not Mosley.
You're in the right ballpark, but even more of a military leader.
Hitler.
Adolf, as you rightly say, hit, as you pointed out, le. Yes.
There's a commemorative oak tree in Norfolk.
The fact is, everybody who won a gold medal in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin was presented with a sapling of an oak tree. And
Our oak trees.
Ah, well,
Proud, you mean they've got oak trees in Germany?
Yes, I'm afraid the German for oak is Eich, so Eichmann is Oakman.
Is it really?
Some of the oak trees are on the German side.
Yes, our word acorn and oak come
Stout,
from the Eich.
proud English oak. Well,
Yeah, hearts of oak. I know. Anyway, the Hitler oaks, yeah. There are none left in Britain except the one in Norfolk, which is surviving, as you see.
You would assume that it's not going to really last that long once people watch this.
Well, no, they might go and take it down. A lot
Yes.
of Americans didn't keep theirs for that reason. Jesse Owens actually did keep his. He won how many gold medals at the...
4.
4, quite right. And one of his Hitler oaks survives in his old training school in Cleveland, Ohio. Gave another to his mother. Some US athletes threw theirs away, as I say.
What a lovely present.
Well, it was handed out by the committee rather than Hitler himself, but they were, of course, associated so much with
I gave
his
my mum a
regime.
pair of Saddam Hussein's pants.
Anyway, there you go. Congratulations to all those who did win.
Describe night of the horrified sheep. So it was an actual thing that happened November the 3rd, 1888, and something happened that spooked all sheep over a 200-square-mile area in Oxfordshire. Tens of thousands of sheep panicked, they jumped fences, they ran for their lives.
Earthquake.
Well, that was one of the theories at the time, that there might have been a small earthquake or something dropped from the sky, but probably what happened is just one sheep panicked. The hospital was just very dark, and the sheep go, "Where's my friends? Where's my friends?"
Have you just gone... And then all the other sheep must be going... He'll think he's on his own.
Yes.
Then when he panicked, they all went, "Oh, my God! What have we done?"
If a sheep can't get to sleep, do you think he counts his friends?
I wonder what the reason was that we decided to count them in the first place at night.
Well, it must be really boring to count sheep.
Yeah, that sends you off, yes. Yeah. Well, I think you've nailed it.
Thanks.
Yes.
I tell you what I'd love to count, kittens.
Ah.
Imagine if 70,000 kittens ran past you. That would just be the most adorable thing that ever happened to anyone.
See, I really struggle with this. I'm more of a dog person.
That's probably why the kittens are all running away from a dog.
Yes.
I always think that about cats. You know when people say, oh, like an old woman died in her flat and she was eaten by her cats? I mean, could be...
What world do you live in, people? Peeing in kettles, old women.
3 days.
Yeah. You get...
3 days and your cat will eat your face.
Yeah.
Because it will have loosened up enough for it to get purchased.
Yeah.
What sort of show is this?
They never say that, do they, about, you know, aged meat on a menu, you know, with a 20-day aged beef. They never use the phrase, "it will have loosened up enough to get purchase."
Have a look at this. Here is a night to remember. This is the 9th of November, 1874. The New York Herald front page article reported the wild animals broken loose from Central Park. Terrible scenes of mutilation. The article described 49 deaths and 200 injuries. There's some excellent details in it. It included a sighting of a lion in a church and my favourite, a rhinoceros in a sewer.
How do they get it out of the sewer?
Never mind that. How did it get in there? It was fantastic.
Manhole cover.
Must have fallen in.
But it wasn't until the very last paragraph that the article concluded. Of course, the entire story given above is a pure fabrication. Not one word of it is true. Not a single act or incident described has taken place. It's a huge hoax, a wild romance. And then it went on to ask, that was the reason for the headline, what would we do in New York if this happened? It's one of the most notorious and indeed accidental media hoaxes. But in fact, it just caused complete panic in the streets.
Is that a huge risk? In zoos?
Well, yes. So you would think that maybe it's something that we don't need to worry about. You've got enough cages. But in February 2016, the Ueno Zoo in Tokyo did their annual test to see what they would do if an animal escapes. And what they did was they got the 27-year-old gorilla keeper called Yumi Tamura to dress up as a zebra. There she is. And there they all are dealing with it. And so, yes. Verified death. Now, here's my favourite moment, checking to see if animal is dead. Wow. The famous poke them with a stick. No one knows why tens of thousands of sheep went crazy in Oxfordshire on the night of November the 3rd, 1888. They may have been surprised by the fact that it got dark, or by the news that earlier in the day, Preston North End beat Notts County 7-0. I'm really trying with the football thing, just so... Right, what can you tell me about the royal we?
It doesn't smell.
We're off and running.
I'm edging his first delivery slip. Richie Benno.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Was that an Australian accent?
Oh, come on! I've been working on that since you were last here.
Really?
They don't open their teeth up.
They? Yes.
They. I've busted my crown,
Oh, no.
you see?
I'll go over to this side. What can you tell me about the royal we?
There was something weird about George III's wee.
I think maybe it was purple, and then they thought he had
Yes.
porphyria,
Yes.
and then now they think he didn't have porphyria, but they were definitely saying there's something up with this guy's wee.
Yeah.
Also, he's gone mad.
Yes. That is entirely correct, but I'm heading in a different direction. Why might a royal person say we?
First person plural.
It is the majestic plural. It's known as nosism from the Latin nose for we. It's the idea that the royal person, instead of referring to themselves as I, in fact, says we.
Implying there's more than one of them.
Yes, well, we can trace it back to Henry II, and it used to mean God and I. That's what it really comes from. We've got Henry II there and his successor, Richard I, and it's Richard I that introduced the motto, Dieu est mon droit, God and my right, and that remains the royal motto ever since.
Got your crown, Dave, got your crown.
I like to think this is like a working crown. This isn't like a Parliament opening coronation crown. This is a crown...
Daily.
Yeah, you can wear it all the time, you can go into
dishes.
battle.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a paper and some fags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to the garage at 3 a.m. for munches.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, the Queen doesn't actually use the pronoun one as much as you would think. They analysed all her speeches since 1952, and she uses I 6 times more often than she says one. It's a parody, really, of how she speaks, because it isn't.
Unless she got bored of it.
Yeah, one's
must be
not
boring
doing that
being
anymore.
Queen, so just mix it up a bit.
It must be quite dull, do you not think? Constantly having to open and close things.
I don't think, to be fair, you mean opening as in launching?
Yeah.
And, yeah. I don't think she closes many things. I don't think, when BHS went under, I didn't think they...
What are trees made of?
Wood.
Is the right answer. Yes, well done. You see? And what is wood made of?
Carbon.
Yes. And where does the carbon come from? The earth. The earth?
Yeah.
No, you'd think most of what makes a tree was drawn up from the soil in nutrients.
It's air, is it?
It's actually vast majority of everything that makes a tree comes from the air, yeah. Photosynthesis, which breaks down the air and leaves the carbon. And that's the carbon that makes a tree, so it is made of carbon. It's quite surprising. So tell me, what good did the Great Fire of London do?
Pretender. I'm risking it here, but I don't care. Wiped out the plague.
Oh, dear It was taught in school, so you've got every reason to think it, but it's just simply not true. There's no evidence whatsoever. Apart from anything else, the plague was already over.
Well, yeah, but it wiped out the conditions in which it could have come back.
Not really, because the plague was mostly in the suburbs, not in the city. The city was not the place that was most affected by the plague, but it was the place that was destroyed by the fire. By the time September 1666 happened, which was the fire, there were very few deaths. It had gone down to... It had almost ended. No one quite knows why it ended, but it certainly wasn't the fire.
Did it make it easier for them to knock down a load of places that they had their eye on?
Essentially, that's the point. It gave the chance to Christopher Wren to get some church building done, especially St Paul's, of course.
So they had lots of grandiose plans about turning London into a grid or a spiral or that, and then they kind of thought about it for ages and then went, put it back as it was.
Yes.
You know, all squiggly lines and weird corners, please.
Yeah, which we love. It is one of the
Yeah, but I think Christopher Wren was a bit depressed about it.
Yeah. Well, the best thing about the Great Fire of London was that it got Wren an opportunity to build in China, the city of Jinan. Spelt Qinan, but pronounced Jinan in China, is about the same size as Corby, you can see it behind us, and is also, by coincidence, the site of one of the country's largest steelworks. But what quite interesting material do they make their houses from? Yeah.
I don't know, is it dinosaur eggs?
I'm almost inclined to tear up the real answer and say yes, but...
Because I've got one.
A Chinese dinosaur egg?
Yes, it was a birthday present from my wife.
Every evening, Bill, 4 hours on the egg, just in case.
Yeah. I'm thinking about taking it abroad, you know. Taking it to the
airport, you know, see if I can get it scanned for free. You know, just put it... So he goes, my God, what the... You know, I thought of doing that when the tortoise was ill. Getting it It's stone. It's fossil, obviously. It's stone, weighs... I thought it was a skull at first when I opened it. And I thought, that's a bit of a weird present. But I'll go along with it. Yeah, great. And they're huge, and they make very good building blocks. So they...
Well, it wasn't as gibberingly, drivellingly stupid an answer as it at first sounded, was it? No, it's not that. It is a very famous Chinese thing that these houses are
bamboo.
constructed of. Oh, dear. Not bamboo. No.
Oh, sir.
Yeah?
Bootleg Coldplay CDs.
Bits of the Great Wall.
Yes is the right answer. Help yourself to 10 points. Absolutely right. Yeah, it's a rather sad thing, this Great Wall of China. It is disappearing. There's only 20% of it left.
Where has it gone?
Well, people just cart bits off to build pigsties and walled barns, and farmers just take bits because it's handy material. The Gobi Desert is encroaching upon the Great Wall.
Is it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
How rude.
Yeah, I know.
How does the desert encroach? Sort of like, you sort of look away and then...
Clay's grandmother's footsteps.
I'm sure it was. It's the same way you get the armrest on a train.
They should convert it into flats or something, you know, something useful.
That'd be brilliant.
If they converted it into flat... Look, it's thick enough for flats. You just need to knock a few windows on either side. And then you could probably have, you know, 400,000 or 500,000 flats all the way along it. And then people would look after their own bit with, you know, window boxes and everything.
Or a retail opportunity. The Great Mall of China would probably do it. That would do it. But, no. But there you are. There are points all round to everybody who deserves them and none to those who don't. What makes up more than 70% of the internet?
It's my personal collection, isn't it?
Of what?
Of gentlemen's special interest literature.
I think we know what you're talking about.
If you're going to be like that...
No, it's just quite surprising. They did a survey on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union, who were very annoyed about some legislation that Bush was trying to push through, which they thought somewhat prohibitive of personal liberty, and they discovered that less than 1% of the internet is pornography. Less than 1%. Of all email traffic, 85, in fact, up to 89%, is spam. It's as simple as that.
Trying to sell you Xanax and penis enlargement.
Exactly. Soft Cialis, whatever that is.
The annoying thing about those, I get loads of them, most of them from my girlfriend, but it's the ones from my mum that really hurt.
Oh. Yes, a recent study has established that the World Wide Web is less than 1% pornography. On the other hand, 89% of all emails are spam, which is good news if you're looking for cheap pills or you want to increase your extremities. What tools do you need for do-nothing gardening?
No tools.
You think? It's also called natural gardening or natural farming. It's an Eastern version of our organic farming that has actually spread around the world.
You sort of have to dig with your hands or persuade other animals to do the gardening for you.
Yes, persuade other animals.
So you sort of persuade that a fox he doesn't want a sort of den, but a rockery.
Well, in the case of paddy
get some
fields...
fish in and they desperately try and dig a pond before they die.
Well, fish is right. Well, in paddy fields, where, as I say, it started in the East, they use ducks instead of herbicide. They eat the weeds, the throttly things that kill the rice, and they use carp as well to helps purify and keep the water in the paddy fields good. Describe the aviation techniques of the concrete arrows.
Well, concrete can't really fly, Stephen, can they? Because it's very heavy.
Well, you say the jumbo jet isn't heavy?
Good point.
It needs a lot of thrust.
Well, you can, so when you're in an aeroplane, you can hear that noise, which is them filling it with helium. Assuming that's what the noise is, and that's how it works. Yeah.
Yes,
We're just waiting for the cabin to fill with helium, and then we will float gently up and then across the sea.
Imagine the conversations you'd have in the plane if it was filled with helium.
It does stuff to your ears, so that's what you are hearing, but it sounds normal.
Good point. We look to you for all this information. We're very grateful for it. Well, naturally, of course, you are quite right in the sense that there have never been any flying vehicles built of concrete. But there have been concrete arrows that have a great deal to do with aviation. And we go back to the early days of aviation in a country that was expanding perhaps more rapidly than any economy has ever expanded, and that was the place...
America.
The United States of America, yes. And there's a large landmass, and they had...
arrows to show the way across it?
Well, yes. They had...
Is that how big
this
the
was even
arrows
faster.
were?
No.
No.
Those would be huge. But
They would be huge.
They were big enough. They had 70-foot-long concrete arrows every 10 miles across the USA. And there's one that still exists. In 1933, they stopped the programme because radio advances and so on had meant they were unnecessary for navigation. But before that, they really needed to find a way that aeroplanes didn't have to dive down into towns to look and see where they were, which before
Ask for direction.
Yeah, basically.
Go down along the high street.
Where am I? And what was common was that the towns would actually paint the name of the town on a large roof.
Is that what those big... You see roofs with T's written on
well,
it.
maybe.
Is that for pilots who fancy a scone? T's, but no airport nearby, sorry.
But there, yes, the arrows, straightforward, really simple, and it worked. Speaking of things visible from the air, can you imagine something that the French made visible from the air to try and win the First World War? Or at least to try not to be utterly crushed by the First World War?
Something for the German spotter planes to see?
Yes.
The fake weaponry or
Was
something
it
like
a
that? Wooden
great
tanks or something?
Big baguette.
It was a fake something.
Fake Eiffel Tower.
Well, and more.
Fake guillotine.
Fake Paris.
A fake Paris,
Fake Paris.
Corinne. Well done. Finally. Finally. Come on, Elsie, come on. And now you've had the pleasure of a whole audience being patronising to you. Come on, Ozzy, come on. Yes, you're absolutely right. The French were very worried as bombing technology was improving towards the end of the war that Paris, their beloved Paris, was going to go up in smoke and all the wonderful buildings. So 15 miles to the north, on the stretch of the Seine, they built lots of buildings, including a Gare du Nord, and even moving lights to suggest the railway tracks and other such things. Unfortunately, it was never completed, because they only had the idea in 1918, and by November, of course, the war
Was it to
was
scale?
over. From the air, yes, I think it was.
Not like that London in Legoland.
No, not like that. How many uses can you think of for a monk's earwax?
Oh, it's endless. Candles. Yeah, candles.
Polishing wood.
That sounds like a euphemism.
But,
Not much else to do in a monastery, is there?
what are monks
Polishing their own
handed
wood.
down to us, mostly?
Bibles.
Bibles are manuscripts, illustrated.
In their lifetime, writing, copying them out, doing lines, basically.
Yes. There we are. There's a picture of a happy monk doing his illuminations. And that side of it, the painty side of it, is they used a substance called glaire, G-L-A-I-R, and it tends to get bubbled. But they found if they added earwax into it, they could get a really smooth, beautiful lustre and sheen to the illustrations that they were doing, which have lasted us down the centuries.
How do you think of that, though, to go, there it is.
The thing you might
paint
try
it
at
that.
home is that you could take a pint of foaming beer and then pop a little earwax into the head of your foaming tankard, and the bubbles should collapse.
If you're watching TV, don't listen to this man.
I think you're right.
It would be better if it was the other way round. That you had a sort of flat liquid and then you put a bit of earwax in and it went fizzy.
Oh, okay. Chuck some sodium in your beer.
Yeah.
That should work.
Which orifice does sodium come out of?
They left other little things for us, little maniculi, little hands that pointed to certain sections of the text in the Bible, which you can see one on the left
Well, if
there.
you've read the name of the rose, they left clues everywhere about all sorts.
Yeah, and octopuses as well. You can see an octopus at the top there. They, for some reason, liked octopuses.
Is that a person with a huge sort of trumpet up his bottom?
It's something odd, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what they're doing there. They're praising the Lord. And above that often have knights fighting snails.
It's so boring in those monasteries.
Exactly.
The old fart trumpet was the favourite. I was going to say on a Sunday, but perhaps not.
No. Well, they used to leave it.
Do you know
They used to leave little remarks like, "Oh God, it's cold in here," or "I'm so bored," and
Around
just
the
like
Bible.
anybody
like
would.
School kids on the desk.
Exactly like that.
So why are they fighting snails?
No one's quite sure, but it's a common feature: knights versus snails. They seem to like it. Some people may think it was a symbol of the struggle of the poor against the aristocracy.
I think people shouldn't watch this show anymore.
Do you think they had loads of snails, sort of in these cold, damp monasteries, and there were snails everywhere, and they were hoping a gallant knight would come and help them deal with their snail infestation problem?
Just how great were the great train robbers?
Well, they're not that great because they got caught.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got so caught. They got caught almost immediately.
Yeah.
And they got caught in very stupid ways. Do you know how they were caught? They went to this farm and played Monopoly using the stolen money as their Monopoly money. And then they cleared out and left their fingerprints over everything, over all the Monopoly set. And they were all, you know, they all had form. They were all, you know, known blaggers. So they were just rounded up, all 12 of the gang of 15. One was acquitted, 2 were never caught. They were pretty inept, is the answer, basically. Who's the most famous of the great train robbers, would you say?
Ronnie Biggs.
Ronnie also said Ronnie Biggs, yeah. And what was his role? Was he the mastermind? Is that why he's the best known?
No.
No, he was such a small peg in the whole thing.
Was he the driver?
No, he wasn't even that. He was inside. He was doing a stretch for taking and driving away. And the mastermind of the entire event met him and said, "I'm planning this blag."
I'm planning a game of Monopoly.
Yeah,
He's just got to pick something up on the way.
Yeah,
It's my set, I've lost all the fake money. And the only way of replacing it I can think of
I've run Waddingtons, they didn't want to know. Get a new set, they said. Don't be ridiculous, I said.
Anyway, the mastermind was called Bruce Reynolds. And he said, if you can find me someone who can drive a train, a diesel train, I will cut you in on a big job that's going down.
You can I mean, that's not like someone who can sort of melt diamonds with their eyes. Someone who can drive a diesel. Apparently they exist somewhere.
But the amazing thing, David Mitchell, is that Biggs found this guy whose nickname was Old Pete or Stan Agate. No one knows who he was because he was the one who was never caught.
Was that Old Pete the train driver? I know.
Yeah. For his job...
After Casey Jones had turned him down.
Yeah. For being found, Ronnie Biggs got a share worth 147,000, which in today's money is 1.6 million. And all he had to do, Ronnie Biggs, was get this guy, Old Pete, to the scene. But this old Pete got to the train and said, "Oh, I don't know how to drive that." Ronnie Biggs still got his share, but old Pete was useless. He couldn't drive a train. He'd been lying all the time.
I like the idea that old Pete's like those actors who put on their CV, "Yes, I can horse ride." Oh, yes, I can drive a train. I speak Mandarin too. Train through China, no problem at all.
That's how he found him. He went through Spotlight. And the other, apparently, he was very well reviewed in Much Ado About Nothing last year.
And he's trained in modern dance.
Yeah.
That could come in handy. Well, the great train robbers weren't particularly great. Most of them were caught because they left fingerprints on the Monopoly set at the safe house. Which was the first animal to be cloned?
Oh, well, I can't be. So
It's not Dolly the sheep, then.
No, you're right. It isn't Dolly. You've all been so good at avoiding my little honey traps. No.
But I thought it was Dolly the sheep. It's not.
Not the first animal, no. We have to go back to the 1880s for the first cloning. Really? Yeah. It was a sea creature, actually.
An octopus or something?
No, it was a sea urchin. There's one. This was a German called Driesch who did it in 1885. But in 1902, another German, Hans Spemann, cloned a salamander. And he used a rudimentary noose, right, to separate the cells of the embryo. And the noose was made of the hair of a human baby. And he used it as like a little lasso to just to separate. Isn't that marvellous?
That is fiddly work.
It is very fiddly work, I've got to say.
There must have been lots of times where he's going, Okay. Could I please have another baby's hair?
Back to the baby.
All the people trying...
One guinea, madam.
trying to keep him calm. Would you like another? No, I don't want another coffee. I don't want...
Go. Do you want me to have a go? No, I don't.
Oh, you're so right. But Dolly was in 1996. Dolly the sheep is the one that you cleverly avoided. But why Dolly? Why called Dolly? Do you know?
It was named after Dolly Parton because the cell came from the mammary glands.
Correctly correctington. Well done, sir. Excellent. Only points.
I think there was a point where they go, we can just get another sheep and say, yeah, there it is, it's genetically identical, that one. There, those two sheep look similar. Well, that's because they're genetically identical.
Well, oddly enough, things can be genetically identical and rather surprising because the first cat to be cloned was called Rainbow, and her clone was known as CC. And there. You say, now, how can that...
Ah, well, they didn't put the effort into it.
No, you're going to say, you see.
When they trolled the pet shop through that little faker, they could have they could have at least sent the guy who they sent to get the other kitten with a photo of their not just get any cat.
Yes. The little kitten is called CC. Points if you can guess what that stands for.
Cat clone.
Whittier. What sort of Whittier? Say? Points to the audience. Copycat, you see. Very good, yeah. The operation was known as Operation Copycat, obviously. It's part of a larger project to clone a dog, which was...
Oh, that's a bit...
Well, it was called Missy, the Missiplicity, named after a dog named Missy. And the world's first cloned dog from Korea is called Snappy.
And they ate it.
Of course. Well, anyway, the point is the first animal to be cloned was the sea urchin way back in 1885. Since then, many other animals have, of course, been given the treatment, including the first cloned cats, which look nothing like. What makes Australian spiders so dangerous?
It's their cunning and their organisation, Steve. And the fact they're willing to put the man-hours in. They will stalk you for weeks. They'll look for patterns in your behaviour, and they'll strike when you least expect it. Just as you're hovering over a poorly bee, holding a shoe high, that's when they'll come and bite you in the bum.
You mean the spider is working with the bee?
Yes. The bee is saying, there's not much longer left for me, but you could have a bit of fun here. Come on. Come in and bite him.
So is it that they sort of hide and lose?
Well, not deliberately, but the only real danger they seem to threat these days, since 1981, when anti-venoms were introduced all around Australia, there are two very poisonous types. There's the redback and the funnel web, the famous funnel web.
Is it people's reaction
There's
to
the redback.
Is it the way that people...
Yeah, that no one has died from a spider bite since 1981.
Yeah.
No one in Australia. But people have been in accidents, which have been fatal, some of them, and some have caused enormous damage, from spiders that have dropped out of sun visors in cars and fallen on people, and they go, "Ugh!" like that, and then crashed. So that's their danger now, oddly enough, not their venom. What is the highest mountain in Europe? Yeah.
Mont Blanc.
Oh! Sorry you said that. No, it isn't. It isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it does begin with an E, if that's any help.
Enormo Blanc. Monte Bianco.
Not the Eiger, no.
Etna.
Oh, hello. Eiger. Did you say Etna?
Yeah.
Etna, eh? No, indeed.
It's some island. It's from the bottom of the sea, if you measure. No,
that's Etna, isn't it, or Stromboli? No, it's not. It's actually right on the borders of Europe, but it does count as Europe. It's definitely Europe, isn't it?
Is it somewhere in the Caucasus?
It is in the Caucasus.
Oh, which of the mountain names of the Caucasus?
Mount Elbrus is the answer. Mount Elbrus. It's where Prometheus was supposedly chained for daring to steal fire from heaven, and he had his liver pecked out every day by vultures as punishment. Ooh. Yes, that's gotta hurt.
You want to get it over with at the beginning of the day.
Yes, you would. 100 people attempt to climb the summit every day in the summer season, when it's not too cold, and about 30-odd die every year.
Do you know that 1 in 8 of people who try to climb Everest die?
Really? That's a high attrition rate, isn't it?
Not good, is it?
Not good at all.
You get acute mountain sickness because you can't breathe. So your stomach won't accept food, so you start throwing up. Apparently there are signs all the way up saying, if you are throwing up and you have a headache, go back.
end.
But people don't.
So when you're putting your party together to go up Everest, just if there's 7 of you, just get someone you don't like. Yeah. Preferably with asthma. Lead on, Wheezy.
In 1997, it was a Land Rover Defender that drove to the very top of Mount Everest, which is a high mountain. It's 18,510 feet.
It's also a very busy mountain for people climbing it, all of whom must have been thrilled to see the guy drive past.
What was the lingua franca of ancient Rome?
Great balls of fire!
Dutch. I knew that's not going to come up.
Yeah, very good, yeah.
See, that's where you've got to think, Joe. You've got to think what they wouldn't put up.
Cheers, Sean. Latin.
Oh!
I did that deliberately.
Yeah, I know. At this point,
she's
it makes...
going for the record.
Yeah, it makes
no
sense.
difference.
Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah.
It's like shooting the moon when you play hearts or one of those
Oh,
games.
it's such a brilliant game.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
What does lingua franca mean?
When people get together, it's a language that is commonly used as like everybody's second language, as it were.
Is it Greek?
Yes, it is Greek. It's the right answer. Greek is the language that people would use in Rome if they weren't Latin speakers. What is this a representation of?
It's Roy Chubby Brown eating a hobnob.
It's Gladstone eating an ice cream and then being beamed up by the Martians.
It's giving birth.
Oh, yes. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's exactly what it is. It's a lamb being born.
God.
In fact, this is a sound effect. Well, you can actually see the sound being made.
Has he listened to lambs being born? And then down now, as he said, no one knows what a lamb being born sounds like. I'll do any old crap.
She actually...
I'll drop a towel.
She's oddly named Lizzie Calf, oddly enough. And she used to do the sound effects for the Archers, amongst other things. She's now our sound wizard. But there is a name to this science of sound effects as used in movies. What sound recorders need is clean dialogue. And all the sound effects, footsteps and other noises, guns being cocked, the rustle of clothing, the lighting of a cigarette, almost all of that is done afterwards by someone called a Foley artist. And here's an example of some of the early Foley artists making their noises. And all kinds of different things are used. If you close your eyes, let the audience see how it's being made. You see if... Alan, when I say close your eyes...
Now, by the way, when I open them, you won't all have gone, will you?
A lamb on my head.
Yeah. You close your eyes, we'll let the audience and everyone at home see some more sounds being made. See if you can see what these are. So, what was that?
Guillotine.
Guillotine, all right. Very good. How was it made?
With a guillotine and a person.
They wanted the sound of cabbages being chopped up, and so they had to kill a guy.
Oh, very good. It was
My
indeed.
eyes shut long after the sound of it.
I'm still singing with my
I'm
eyes
so
shut.
obedient.
It was indeed a cabbage. You slide a knife along a scaffolding pole and then chop a cabbage and drop it into the bucket. It's pretty good.
Saves
Got
the
another
life
one.
of
Close
an
your eyes.
aristocrat.
Okay.
And what was that?
Someone pretending
It's a
to be a
horse
horse.
clapping.
I mean, that sounds exactly like some coconut shells. That's a two-legged horse.
Yeah.
Wearing some awkward shoes.
There you are, here they are. That's it. You've all done.
It's a horse clapping.
Don't you think it sounds like a horse?
It does sound like a horse.
You've seen it many times in films without knowing that it was coconuts. If you see the visual thing, then it works. Another one.
At the
All right.
same time.
Close your eyes, yeah. What do you think this sound is?
It's fire. It's a fire, isn't
Yes,
it?
fire, exactly. They use this for fire, ripping through straw and things like that.
On all the... That one.
Now, here's a good one. This is weird, this. Because you see it and you think, no, bollocks. It's a piece of paper coming out of an envelope, right?
And we're taking off a shirt.
No. This is what they genuinely used at Elstree For the doors in Star Wars, electric doors.
Oh.
Paper being taken out of an envelope. Simple as that. You watch a bit of Star Wars now and you see the doors open, you think, oh, yes, so it is. So anyway, we thank Lizzie Calf, our sound expert, and we apologise to her if she's in tears now, having been mocked by David Mitchell.
No, I'm not. Look, I'm perfectly willing to accept that with the pictures there, then you're going to buy the whole effect.
Yeah.
But, you know. Time now for the odd one out round. One between you this week. Your four are SpongeBob SquarePants, Sally Burko, Walter Tell, and Carmen Miranda.
Fruit.
Sally Burko fruitcake.
No, she was caught. I'm sure I saw this on Channel 4 News. This was big. She was
It was
at one of the
news.
conferences balancing some item of fruit on her head in a bar.
Yes, that's correct.
Walter Tell, son of William, balanced an apple on his head and
yeah,
had
he
it
did.
shot off by his father. Carmen Miranda had a whole bowl of fruit on her head. Fantastic, and sang, "Yes, we have no bananas." SpongeBob SquarePants, he's quite a guy. Bob is the odd one out.
Yeah.
Is it
Yoga.
because he's got a friend called Patrick?
And he's the odd one out because nobody else knows anybody called Patrick.
Where does SpongeBob live?
He lives under the
in a
sea.
pineapple. Yes, but also under...
A pineapple.
No. Yes!
Yay!
Hello! Right.
Is there an echo?
Did you say
Is there an echo?
Did you say under a pineapple first?
There was a little echo over that
I
side.
don't know.
He did all... You know what? Let him have it. Proper chairman, and God love you, Hump, would have said by now, I'm going to award points to both sides.
But I can't say it now. How spineless would I look? Yes, SpongeBob SquarePants is the odd one out. How would you describe his voice, Ian?
Rough, manly.
Cutted Lord Helsham.
Well, Tom Kenny, the man behind the distinctive voice, describes it as a dolphin with a touch of seagull thrown in, which is also a starter at Heston Blumenthal's. Can you name any of Carmen Miranda's hits?
Yes. We I like you very much. Way down among Brazilians, coffee beans go by the millions, and they got a lot of coffee there to sell. There's a full lot of coffee in Brazil. At last, the show's coming to life.
Carmen Miranda cracked America, but her English wasn't great. She told one magazine, I say 20 words in English, I say money, 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 and I say hot dog. She went on to teach Nancy DeLolio how to speak English. Yes, they've all had fruit on their heads, apart from SpongeBob SquarePants, who lives under a pineapple in a fun town under the sea. Sort of like Blackpool will be once all the fracking starts.